The Blackhawks losing streak will extend through the holiday break as they fall 3-1 to the Flyers. Not a ton of new takeaways, unfortunately, in this one. Just not a lot of offense, only 21 shots on goal for the Blackhawks. They went 0 for 4 on the power play. Very few high danger chances generated, just not a lot of offense for the Blackhawks. And look, it's to be expected. You're missing your top two forwards, and Connor Bedard in particular, who at the time of his absence had accounted for almost 50% of the Blackhawks offense. So look, it makes sense. You're not going to have the same offensive juice, and that's sure been apparent here over this 6-game losing streak. A 6-game losing streak that unfortunately shows no sign of ending right after this holiday break that the Blackhawks have, that the whole NHL has. They'll have to travel to Dallas on the 27th to play that night in Dallas without your top two forwards. It's going to be, I hate to say it, but it's going to be a disaster. That is going to be an ugly, ugly game. And then to make matters worse, on the 28th, they have to fly back to Chicago for the back-to-back, the second night of a back-to-back versus a Pittsburgh team. Hasn't quite been as good, but still overall they've exceeded expectations. So it's going to be two relatively tough games, especially that one in Dallas. I'm predicting a complete disaster. So look, I hate to be so negative, but it definitely is a tougher time right now. Again, it's kind of expected. You're missing your top two guys, but still, they're really struggling to generate anything. The one Blackhawks goal tonight was from Ryan Donato, who scored on a nice shot from the slot on a 4-on-4. I thought Donato had a really, really good game tonight. This was more shades of last year's Ryan Donato that scored 62 points over the course of the season last year, as opposed to the Ryan Donato we've seen this year. He was riding an 11-game goalless drought heading into tonight, so he hasn't quite been the same player. And look, no one thought he was going to replicate his production from last season, but we just haven't been seeing the player that generates chances or is really noticeable at all throughout the course of the season. Sure, he's playing in a lesser role, but tonight I thought he had a really good game. He was one of the few Blackhawks that was actually generating. I counted 3 or 4 high quality or at least decent chances that Donato that came off of Donato's stick, and for other Blackhawks you can't really say that. There were very few chances throughout this game, so I thought Donato played a really, really good game. He was actually pretty noticeable. Obviously, skating in the top 6 helps that. He was paired with Bertuzzi and Burakovsky this game, and yeah, I thought he had a really nice game. It shows he is a pretty solid complementary piece. However, outside of Donato, it was pretty rough offensively. One thing I am going to go to is the box score here, and just take a look at the ice times. Donato had deservingly 21 minutes, 35 seconds. Burakovsky and Bertuzzi were both over 20 minutes as well, but Nick Lardis only 10 minutes, 32 seconds of ice time, just over 7 minutes at 5-on-5. It's just simply not enough. I really like what Jeff Blashill's done with just his roster construction throughout and lineups throughout this season, but this is something that I definitely disagree with. I don't like the way he's handled Lardis. He needs, in my opinion, he needs to be playing more. He's one of the few guys that can actually get the puck to the net at a relatively consistent rate. I mean, we saw in his debut 8 shot attempts in that game, and then in the 3-game road trip, he really barely played like he did tonight. That first game was really the only time we saw him play a decent amount. Oliver Moore, only 11 minutes and 14 seconds of ice time, only 7:25 at 5-on-5. Again, it's to me, it's just not enough. Not saying Moore is like some going to be crazy generating a bunch of chances, but you just need to play him more. If you're not going to play these guys, put them back in Rockford. Like, I feel like you may at this point be hindering their development by playing them so little, and with just how desperate the Blackhawks need offense. I don't get why these guys aren't getting more ice time. Defensively, I thought the Blackhawks played pretty decently throughout this game. They held Philly to 2 goals and then the empty netter in the third, which was a super unfortunate empty netter. Seems just like a miscommunication at the end where Knight went off maybe when he wasn't supposed to. I'm not sure what happened, but he went off right as the Flyers broke out, and it just gave them an easy goal. Kind of disappointing way to end the game, as the Blackhawks were at least threatening a bit in the final few minutes, and they were about to pull the goalie, potentially try to tie the game. Unfortunately, that empty netter sealed things, but again, I thought through the course of this game, Blackhawks played pretty decently. I mean, Jeff Blashill said himself in his second period interview that he thought the Blackhawks were the better team, thought the first half of the game up until that second period power play goal for the Flyers. And I don't know if it was true that they were the better team, but I would say it was pretty 50-50. There weren't really many chances both ways, which for the Blackhawks, I guess, is the way you're going to want it. You're not going to be generating a lot of chances if you're the Hawks. So if you can keep the other team from doing so, it's going to keep you in the game, and probably does mean that you're winning those minutes. So overall, I thought it was a pretty decent defensive game. There were a few collapses. I highlighted over on Twitter at Blackhawks Focus a shift from the Trevor Zegras line that was one of the most dominant shifts I've seen. This was in the third period, one of the most dominant shifts I've seen in a while. They hemmed and pressured the Blackhawks for 40 plus seconds. Spencer Knight overall in this one stopped 23 of 25 for a save percentage of .920. Pretty good stuff again from him. It's just the Blackhawks really struggling to generate anything. Going to get into some takeaways over on Twitter at Blackhawks Focus. First one says, predicting a 3-1 loss 5 minutes into the game. You could tell the Flyers were going to drag this game into the mud and the Hawks weren't going to get many chances. Not sure how many more Levchinov shots right to bodies I can take before I go crazy either. Yeah, Levchinov definitely had a few shots get blocked. It's definitely frustrating, but honestly, to me, I'm just happy someone's trying to get pucks to the net. If they get blocked, so be it. I just really like to see somebody shooting. Not a lot of players on this roster seem to want to do that. Fire Kyle Davidson should have been on. All right, I'm going to disagree with that. I do not understand the sheltering of Nick Lardis. Clearly, the vets aren't earning top minutes. Send him back to Rockford if this is how it's going to be. I couldn't agree more with this. I just talked about it, so I'm not going to get too much more into it. But Lardis needs to be playing more. Pair him with somebody. I don't really care, honestly, who they pair him with, as long as he's just on the ice. He needs to at least showcase what he can do. You know, you're not generating anything anyways. He literally can't do worse than the players already out there. I just can't do it anymore. They're really bad. Only takeaway is see you next year. Get me to the draft, he said, for the 8th or 9th year straight. All I want for Christmas is Bedard back. Every game that goes by is another game closer to Bedard coming back. This all is true. These games are definitely showcasing how valuable Connor Bedard is to the team and how good of a player he is. I mean, it's night and day the difference between the Blackhawks offense with Bedard just in the lineup versus not. Even outside of the stat that I've referenced probably like 20 or 30 times over the past week or two, that Bedard's factored in on 48.4% of Blackhawks goals up until his departure from the lineup. Even just chances, shots on whatever it may be, like Bedard completely changes the Blackhawks offense. The power play is so much better. Everything is so elevated with Bedard. I think someone commented this maybe on a post-game takeaway when Bedard initially went down, and they were asking, like, do you think that with Bedard out of the lineup, it could boost his chances for Team Canada? And initially I was thinking no, just because I didn't know how much. I knew it was kind of already known that Bedard was such a big factor. Again, I referenced that 48.4% stat. But after seeing, I didn't realize it was going to be quite this bad. I mean, they are generating absolutely nothing offensively. I really underestimated the extent of how I knew they were going to be bad, but man, I did not know the offense was going to be this bad. So yes, I actually do think now this stretch is definitely helping Bedard's chances at least a little bit. Initially, when the injury news came out for Bedard, I thought his Team Canada chances were almost shot. But now I'm kind of thinking that he still has a pretty good chance to make Team Canada, not just because of this stretch of poor Blackhawks offense, but I just came to my senses a little bit. I think it doesn't sound like the injury is going to be too bad. He should be back before the Olympic break. So all of that just kind of, I do still feel like there is a chance Bedard is on Team Canada, a lot better chance than I initially thought when the injury happened. We'll find out on the 31st. So definitely stay tuned for that, because that's really the only exciting Blackhawks news we have right now. So yeah, the next Hawks game comes after this 3-day holiday break on the 27th. I don't know if I'm looking forward to it or not, because I'm kind of afraid. Again, they have to travel the 27th, the same day as the game, because of the 3-day holiday break where you can't travel early. So they have to travel on the 27th to Dallas, which is a pretty, that's a decent flight to get to Dallas, and then they have to play that night versus one of the best, probably one of the 3 best teams in the NHL. So it's going to be a tough one, but we'll see you then for some post-game takeaways. Might have a video out a little bit sooner showcasing some of the World Juniors Blackhawks prospects, but yeah, we'll see what happens here over the next few days. That's going to conclude this one.